So, now for formal introductions, guys. Spawning in as Team Snake, as the English in the color green, it is Wham01, the first of his kind, spawning in on the southwestern part. His counterpart, his brother, also sharing half of his genetic code. It's the stream of the brothers today. We have Puppy Paw playing as China. They're playing up against a singular solitary fat penguin with the name of Louis MT, playing as the Malian, spawning in on the northern side. His counterpart is CSO, spawning in as the French, going for a little bit of an early mill and wheelbarrow, actually, for the French. Not something that we saw on other French builds. Now, we're on Basin, Baron, so this is one of those maps, especially in a 1v1 setting, that I see a lot of Delhi, but what I have seen in a 2v2, just for the small amount of Basin games that I've actually casted, decent amount of trade coming out in Basin in a 2v2. Have you seen that also?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I was playing against Mr. Munch, and I traded on both sides, but I fooled him into thinking he had shut down my trade, but he hadn't. Because you kind of know exactly where the trade posts are going to spawn, so you can have that plan going in, unlike Dry Arabia, where this is not, something that's guaranteed or something that you have all that much control over. On the other hand, while it explains the Malian pick, it's intriguing to see English and Chinese. Not. So I imagine that the idea. Yeah, I guess the idea is going to be to try and play some minor feudal pressure, and maybe invest into their economy a little bit more, sort of going forward and trying to do things. Of course, in a 2v2, it's so important. Like, producing army is really the order of the day. It's much harder to play defensively, way harder to go like stuff like 2TCs that we see is so prevalent in 1v1s, because you go 2TC, you can defend yourself against one army, but it's much harder to defend yourself against two.
Yeah, absolutely. If you end up getting targeted by both of the players, you're going to be needing to recruit the help of your friend. And even though you talked about the second TC maybe not being as advantageous, Wham is taking your advice and telling you to shove it, because he is going for a second TC as the English, pretty standard 2TC build from him, and then Puppy Paw, I'm assuming, will go up to Song Dynasty at some point, but drops the Imperial Academy first, just to make sure. French on the other side of School Cavalry, no big surprises there. Louis MT going for the Mansa Quarry. Shout out Mansa Musa, the richest guy of their time over in the Malian Empire, going to be generating 75 gold per minute. I know a lot of people are going more in the way of the quarry than the Farimba, but for some people, maybe you don't see Malians a lot, maybe you don't play them a lot. Got to remember what that quarry does. When it comes up, however, probably is going to end up staying on gold, I would imagine, and we'll see a stable from Louis MT trying to get that 150 wood and able to do so, because we know how Warrior Scouts play, Baron, and we know how broken they are. So we're probably going to see some Warrior Scouts from him too.
I gotta say, they're pretty busted. I played a Malian Mirror a few days ago against a Conqueror player. My first win on the ladder, actually, against Conquerors. And it was absolute hell. Like, it was a scout. And the first person to make Sofa lost. Which kind of just tells you how busted they are. On the other hand, the ability of the Warrior Scout is just so annoying to deal with. The ability that the Warrior Scout is most well known for is its regeneration, because you can pull away those low health Warrior Scouts and heal, and the reason that it's so busted is because it regenerates faster than Chivalry. And if you thought French Knights were annoying, wait till you see Warrior Scouts, the fastest unit in the game, just speeding around, whacking your villagers, whacking your boars, whacking everything in existence, and then running away. It's obnoxious, especially on High View, a map where scouts are like the relevant part. It also means that your scout can be forward all the way from Dark Age, and that's what you see is happening here. OEMT pretty happy with being able to whack away at these villagers. Nothing really much gonna happen here, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Oh yeah, and especially when these warrior scouts actually grow in mass. You saw a lot of villagers went down to about half-ish health, and making Puppy Paw get a barracks out and get a spearman. But you saw it took a decent amount of hand cannon hits from these guys, but these warrior scouts regenerate 2 health per second. So probably give it until, I don't know, maybe about 550, something like that. It's going to be like it never got hit at all. And that's one of the really important things for the Malians if they want to get pro scouts and if they want to get some deer. It looks like Louis MT going for more of the cattle way. Malian's going to be more of a red meat diet instead of venison. But these warrior scouts, just because of how cheap they are and how quickly you're able to produce, get the upgrade, and all kind of stuff, it gives you that little bit of map presence, which is important, while at the same time being able to gather resources to go up to castle, because these warrior scouts, they're only 90 food each. They're not doing much in the way of gold. You're able to stockpile your gold just a little bit, and in a 2v2 setting, your teammate coming in with some heavy hitters and using Royal Knights as the French. So it's going to be very difficult for the English and the Chinese in order to venture out, because these are two reactive civs that really want to protect their own in the way of map control. And you're seeing Puppy Paw going on the stone, trying to get a second TC, a Song Dynasty. Good amount of spearmen here, which will take down some warrior scouts if they try to stick around. It looks like one Chinese villager ends up going down, so their second TC might be a little bit delayed. His brother on the other side going for that English town center right next to the deer, so he will be able to get that up pretty quickly. And it looks like both of these players, just because of how economically advantageous it is to get a second town center, Puppy Paw and Wham will be trying to go for more of the boom strategy, play in the late game, which really falls in the hands of an English and a China, especially against a Mali and a French, who really, in terms of Imperial Age and power spikes, kind of bottom out there.
CSO is going to be going for trade, which straight away, which makes... I guess I didn't expect the French player to be the one trading. In fact, it was so astonishing that I double-checked myself to make sure that the right blue was selected. But yes, it is CSO who is trading behind all of this quite comfortably. And that's your two town centers. Those are the two markets right there. French traders better than... Oh, there's the Warriors Cup going. French traders better, if you remember, than other traders, in the sense that they are A, better than villagers, and B, they gather any resource. So eventually those markets are actually better than the town centers here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about, even though trade got nerfed just a little bit, the ability to get that gold income, especially as the French, is super huge. Obviously, like you said, they're able to change different resources if they want to, but now it's going to be if their opponents actually scout it. It feels like they're so busy with their own base. I saw Puppy Paw lose a scout to Louis Town Center a little bit before, so I don't know if they have any scouts up at all. They're more so trying to stop these warrior scouts from taking deer from their town centers, taking deer from their areas, and it looks like only about 3 or 4 are going to end up going up. But at the same time, Louis, at the 9th minute of the game, even though he had the warrior scouts, he had that presence around the map, he's able to go Farimba Garrison and able to get to Castle Age rather quickly. He'll be up by about the 940-ish mark.
And that is so scary, right? Okay, yeah, now some of these traders are going to be taken down by these hardened spearmen that have come along, and they might be able to knock down these markets as well. But the traders have kind of paid for themselves, firstly, and secondly, the momentum is really going to be with the blue team that's going forward here, because they're simply going to be, just make some spears, make some archers, clean up your trade, and you're just so far ahead.
Right, and especially getting those resources and expending them into Castle Age, just like Louis is doing with the Farimba Garrison. Going to be pulling out those archers at 5 archers a pop and will have the resources, I would imagine, in due time to get some poison on those arrows, which is going to be really good against some of those heavy hitters that English has if they start to go into men-at-arms. Now, Wham's starting to gain some economic security here with the second town center. Does have an outpost there as well. Hasn't done much in terms of a farm economy. Just has about 6 farms over here. And Puppy Paw doing the Lord's work over here, taking down all of these markets. But the one market that is the most important is on the other side of the map. That solitary market is the thing that these traders are actually trading with. So yes, you got rid of the quote-unquote trade trick markets, but not necessarily the market that they're trading with. So CSO gonna have to pull a villager over there and start getting more markets in
Yeah, he
due
did try
time.
to take it. Go ahead.
These archers from Louis MT going to be able, just because they're veteran status, going to be able to pull those spearmen over there and give a little bit of security to those traders. And now with the French having a little bit of extra resources from that trade, it looks like I see 1 stable from them with the School of Cavalry and 1 archer range. I kind of expected a little more, Baron.
Yeah, I was gonna say he tried to walk around on the map and take a boar, but got denied. And the problem is now the sort of like payback time for the town centers has kind of kicked in. And eventually, unless he's able to reestablish these markets and start like scaling again, you're not going to be able to keep up with the volume of army that Vam and Puppy Paw are going to produce. And sure, they're like not in castle yet, but that's because they invested so heavily into their economy, and that investment will pay off. You really need to sort of force the issue, quote unquote, here. So, yeah, I guess I'm a little puzzled by the fact that when you go up to Firimba, you have this sort of momentum, but you need to turn this economy into something more serious. This English expedition will be eventually cleaned up, I imagine. But again, Bam with the army forward, it's now the other way around. He's keeping the army away from his own base, which has more and more eco continuing to pump from those town centers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that second TC from English is always super important, just because you're able to get those farms around it in those mills, and then your food economy is pretty much stable from the rest of the game. Now archer count from Louis MT starting to get up a decent amount. We have a military count of 40 from the Malians now, and now he's starting to add the imported armor, increasing armor of those sofas by 2. So hopefully we'll see a couple of moving pieces of furniture maybe outside on this map. And Louis doing a good job with that passive economy. One of the things that the Malians that a lot of people didn't like when the Malians came out is their ability to generate such amazing passive economy, because they can stay on 1 town center. Economic count right now is only 44. But just because of all of this passive income and all of this gold that they're able to get, they're able to consistently pump out units 5 at a time. And it becomes such a dangerous thing letting the Malians get out of hand.
Absolutely. Don't forget that they can also add cattle ranches behind all of this, though. It's something that you shouldn't really do too early because it's a lot of investment that takes a while to pay off. However, a little bit of a lull in the storm for both these players. Some raiding going on by CSO with these Blue Knights. They're gonna get caught out now by the Spearmen of Vam and forced to, well, pull away. But behind this, I'm just looking at the army numbers here. I've got to say, for Team Blue, a fat penguin, I guess, there isn't much army from CSO at all. There's 19 army, and he's dropped more stables now, so he's addressed your big production problem. So he has 4 stables pumping non-stop, but he hasn't replaced them. Oh, he has to replace the markets. I didn't notice that. It'll be so he's back to scaling as he used to, as he was earlier, and I imagine that eventually, what's really going to happen is army choices are going to make the decision here. It's interesting that he sent a villager all the way over to the east trading post, though it seems to be some intention of claiming that as well.
Or it could be just about walling it off, right? Just making sure that that trading post can't be used. I am curious to see what he does with this also. But now that everybody is... Nope, he's got markets over here too. He's going to be going in both angles, you can see the waypoints on your screen. Going to try to trade trick on that other side as well. Pretty dangerous, but if he's able to pull it off, it could be pretty advantageous for him. Now with everybody in Castle Age, Wham going with the King's Palace. We saw Puppy Paw's astronomical clock tower going to be able to make some clock tower siege, and this is when this town center, you can hear the beehives going off on the western side. He's got a lot of Zoog new now of the veteran status. We'll be getting that Spearman upgrade in about 5 seconds, so that'll be able to pop right up for him. Now with Puppy Paw and Wham, hopefully they can join their forces together and make a good push, because now you're at the time where these two town centers, especially for China, ends up making such a difference. Puppy Paw already at 87 villagers. CSO trying to get a little raid going on, but Puppy Paw walling perfectly and pulling some villagers over here to get some repairs also. Maybe he might be able to catch these Royal Knights off guard. And he's got a lot of Castle Age Spearmen, even though those are Pseudo Imperial Knights. He does see that Spearman mass and going to be able to retreat, but he gets caught right in to Wham's Spearman mass. One Red Royal Knight actually does take hits, but they're going to end up moving north. And now that these forces are joined, they might be thinking about where to go in terms of pushing, in terms of making some kind of establishment in the map, or perhaps trying to take down some of this trade again that CSO is already starting to pump.
Yeah, and Louis MT is joining him as well. You know, partners in crime as well. Poison Arrows is going to take through another half a minute, going to pull ahead. And after that, I imagine he'll get the +1 up as well. Poison Arrows are ridiculously powerful technology, full +3 damage. It does take a little bit of time for the damage to count down, but it can stack, and you have to remember, it's not affected by armor.
Yeah, it does such a good job, and it gives the Malians some area of defense against those heavy cavalry units that either Puppy Paw or Wham, if any of them decide to make knights, or if Wham decides to make men-at-arms. But it looks like he's just going with the spearmen, not going into men-at-arms at this point. Louis actually adding Musafati warriors, which would be good if he was playing against some heavy units, but we're not really seeing much as of yet. The only heavy units that we're seeing out here is from CSO, and he's trying to get a little bit of a raid over here, going around the Chinese base, looking for villagers to kill, looking for an area. There's a Chinese keep going up, which goes up at extra building speed, which is super annoying. And that keep going up just in time. And just because they have the hand cannon slits, those knights actually end up going down pretty quickly.
Interestingly enough, Puppy Paw is also going to drop a keep right in the middle of one of the trade routes. He sneaked those villages around there by some very interesting route. He sent a fake bunch of villagers to distract the Musafati and then sent the real ones through.
Uh-oh, whoa.
Whoa.
3 veteran Royal Knights are now of the English variety. I wasn't sure if CSO was actually going to spot that. Louis MT did spot this keep, however. Villagers had to come into the outpost. That keep actually gets denied for now, but Puppy Paw and Louis MT getting into the thick of it. We've got a nest of bees shooting its bees out. We see the poisonous arrows coming in from the veteran archers. Nest of bees trying to get some good hits. Veteran archers down to about half health. Just because of Louis MT doesn't have much of a front mass. Spearman did a good job taking care of those sofas. Louis got a kite and continue to back up just a little bit. And even though sofas have those imported armor, that Zhuge Nu mass, just because of how many there are, really shredded into them. Puppy Paw back home, just because his military is all the way out there, it means that he's able to get raided. Lots of idle time going in by his hometown center. Wham is sending his spears over, trying to help out. There's multiple battles going on at the same time. Louis MT is actually helping out because CSO sent some of his knights to try to flank around. Musafati warriors trying to get into it against some of these spearmen. Nest of bees preserving its life, trying to stay alive. It looks like it'll get a good hit on some of those archers. Another 3 or 4 end up going down, but Puppy Paw's army ends up getting wiped on the other side. Wham was trying to get a push over here on the north side, but had to back up and retreat because his teammate is in a significant amount of danger right now. They did have a big cleanup, and as you see, some of these Malian troops over here, decent amount of sofas of the veteran variety, and Musafati warriors trying to get in here and might try to push that Chinese base. It's going to take a while for Puppy Paw to actually get some of his army back up and up to good strength. Military count right now of 23, does have 100 villagers, but I feel like if he takes a push right now, it's going to be an issue. Wham is the only one of these Canadian brethren that actually has a very good standing army, and Wham did have a lot of extra resources, so what did he do? He put it into Berkshire Palace, and he's going to be the first one to Imperial Age. What do you think about the Berkshire pick?
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like, you want to sort of maybe stop this constant pressure that's happening. And Wingard takes a while to pay off. I don't know. I feel like Berkshire buys him the time he needs to actually take advantage of Imperial. On the other hand, Wham did lose the 3 Royal Knights, unfortunately, that he got because he was trying to raid the trade. The trade, by the way, that is really beginning to scale now and gonna be causing a lot of problems in the long run if this gold income isn't stopped. Another bunch of villagers from Puppy Paw dropping keep after keep in a desperate attempt to stop this. But there's a fight happening right in the center. Nothing really much to talk about here. Louis MT recognizes that he doesn't want to fight a network of castles as the Berkshire goes up and decides to pull away.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really blame him for not wanting to fight with the Berkshire Palace, and hopefully we'll see some good shots, some arrow fire, just because the range of that Berkshire Palace is 15, which, if you did not know, does constitute a different area code that the Berkshire Palace can actually shoot into. CSO trying to get a raid over here on south side. Again, finding Wham Spearman. That's a pretty good pickup just because of the mobility of those knights. A lot of them are going to end up escaping. But a couple go down in the process. I do agree with you, though, just based on what you said about this trade. We talk about trade getting nerfed just that little bit of 10%, but Malian trade is still Malian trade. When you get these toll outposts going, as you can see, those traders, those trade ships that pass by that toll outpost, you get a little bit of extra resources that we're going to see the Malians end up doing. So just because they're at one town center doesn't mean they don't have the economy. A lot of Royal Knights in here from CO trying to get some raids on English villagers, English longbowmen of the elite variety now, and some crossbowmen of just the normal Castle Age variety. Going to be able to see these Royal Knights, and just because these longbowmen have 11 damage normally, they don't do that bad against these knights. Spearmen up front in the front line. This is going to be a lot of lost units from CO, and I think that's going to be tremendous, huge loss from him. CO trying to get a forward Red Palace going up here, but Wham might be able to see it. It looks like that Red Palace at about half health. Nothing to do. He's got to cancel it, move those gold villagers out. That could have preserved a little bit of a gold mine over here. Now Puppy Paw, take a look at this, Baron. Puppy Paw with his stone walls taking out this trade completely. He's got 3 keeps in this area. CSO and Louis now cut off from that trade gold supply.
Absolutely, I was watching that, but I didn't want to interrupt the Red Palace gameplay. He's just going to take that stone and turn it into keep after keep after keep, and then okay, yeah, this trade post is cut off. This trade post is cut off. Now you have a humongous amount of traders. They're still going to trade, right? Like, it doesn't matter because you can trade with your allies' trading post, but it just sort of slows things down a little bit. Like,
yeah, and it looks like
gold, they went to 114,
which is huge, right? That's like a 30 to 40% reduction just because you're not using that neutral market anymore. But armies swelling up to a good size for Louis and CSO, even though he lost a little bit of knights. It looks like his knight count right now at about 20, but not meeting his Malian counterpart over here trying to take a look at Wham's base. I don't know, if I had to pick a civilization not to go straight into their base, the English would probably be the one to do so. These elite spearmen do have the Network of Castles upgrade. Network of Citadels comes in at just the right time. We got a Wololo over here. Oh
my goodness.
That's the game. I mean, that Wololo just converted about 30 units. We have Malian sofas that are now English, but their armor is still imported. That could have been originally from England. I'm not really sure how that works, but they're fighting up against each other. Musafati warriors over there are going to be able to get some good hits on those sofas. Louis and CSO surrender. That Wololo probably saved about 20 minutes from that game, because that had the potential of being that post-Imperial game that we want to see with trade and a 2v2 setup. But that one solitary relic just turned into the holy grail for Wham and Puppy Pod. Team Snake going to take a 1-0 lead.